Hey, hi,
Sure.
hello. Hi, Parse. Welcome to the Sporculation Podcast. I'm Yusuf.
I'm Parse.
I'm Anton. Parse, are you playing video games right now?
No, I'm not playing video games right now. I
There's
actually
a
have
there,
my headset on for this particular episode, and yeah, it's great.
is there a controller in your hands?
No controller in my hands, guys. Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. So let's get the show on the road.
Let's get the show on the road. It's been
gonna brighten my light here.
she gotta be
So,
get that lighting, get that beautiful face of yours to show.
you guys need to see this face. It's good looking.
Yeah, I need to see that
Yo,
face,
tilt
man.
the camera up.
Yeah, tilt your camera a little up. You don't see your there we go. That's a little better.
All right, there we go.
There you go. There you go. Hi guys, it's been a while since we've done this because hockey season's been going on and Tyler and I have been flooding the fucking YouTube channel. But it's good that we have the OG.
To the Lightning.
Yeah, congrats to the fucking Lightning. Good for
But
them.
we did win a Montreal win. I cannot count.
Congratulations to the Bucks, inevitably.
The Bucks, yes, of course. And that bet I made,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, we know.
125 is going to be cashed in tomorrow. Well, not
Well, we're
tomorrow.
not.
Whenever they
Tuesday.
play
Tuesday.
Milwaukee.
I think it's Tuesday, yeah.
Well,
Excited about
you
that.
guys will know by the time this is out.
Exactly. So, yeah, we're not talking about the normal stuff. We're not talking about hockey. We're not going to be talking about basketball. We're not going to be talking about the Jays coming back.
Or how Carey Price could be going to Seattle.
Carey just needs to get a ring, and I don't care who gives it to him. He just needs to find it. Even if to ride the bench of Boston, get it done.
Tune in to Up the Boards with me, Tyler, and potentially Parse if to talk about Seattle. Oh God, that's scary. But no, we're talking about the big sporting event that's happening soon. I think this week actually. That I completely forgot about, even though I keep seeing all the advertisements and all the protests in Japan. The Summer Olympics are happening, guys. The 2020 Summer Olympics are happening in 2021.
Yep.
And
the central question is, well, for one central question is, do the Olympics even matter anymore? And another one is, should they be running? But yeah. Anyway.
Who wants to start us off?
I think we should start off. Well, where do you want to start? Which question do you want to start?
Should they be running this year?
Okay.
I guess they sort of go hand in hand. Like,
yeah. Because so you look at everything that's been happening with COVID. Obviously, vaccines have been rolled out and everything. Japan is still in a weird spot with COVID. I believe parts of the country are under lockdown again.
Yeah.
But the IOC has been hell-bent. They're like, yeah, we're taking all the precautions we can and we will to make sure that the Olympics run. I know 2 athletes have already contracted COVID in Japan, so that's a great start.
Yeah.
But it's just, you look at, I want your thoughts on this, guys. Is it such a good idea? I know they're not going to be having spectators, but is it really such a good idea for them to be hosting this massive sporting event with tens of thousands of athletes and sporting staff there, while we're still not really in the home stretch of the end of the pandemic, and not to mention with certain countries, athletes coming from those countries might have some issues because COVID is still a problem in a lot of places, including Japan.
Yeah, some people, some athletes might not have gotten the vaccine yet.
Nope.
Stuff like that. I think it's because it's I think they're trying to be similar to the NBA and NHL bubbles of 2020, right? I think that's what they're trying to go for, but this is the Olympics. This is not one thing with basketball or hockey was the 24 teams or something like that. And how many people were there?
24 really? Teams. You're talking an average 15 to 30 people.
Yeah.
And not a lot of staff.
So. Yeah, this is the Olympics, guys. Wherever 200 representing nations or whatever, and all these athletes going in to compete from different countries, and support staff as well. I don't know. Is this going to be a cluster? I don't know. I understand that the IOC wants it to run, and Japan is kind of we invested a lot of money into this. we kind of need it. We kind of need a little bit of return on investment here, but I don't know. Like if they wait until the next year afterwards, it's like at that point you're already into the Winter Olympics. About it's
Yeah, because the Winter
exactly
Olympics
what
are
I was
next year,
thinking
right?
too, is that we probably have the Winter Olympics like literally
before
like in a year.
yeah before
Yeah,
that,
before that.
and then the Summer Olympics right after that.
Yeah, which would be a lot of money spent.
Well, the good thing for fans is that that's a lot of sporting events to get through. Don't forget FIFA. We got the World Cup coming up too.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
my
yeah,
God.
because they got
Qatar is
yeah,
next year.
Yeah, World
Oh,
Cup. So that's the
man.
other thing. It's like
Yeah.
you can't compete with World Cup because well, I mean, football is one of the Olympic sports, right?
Yes, but also the World Cup is in October next year. It's not in
Oh.
the summer. Yeah,
Right, because otherwise
Qatar's
everyone's gonna
way
die
too
from the
hot.
sun
Everyone's gonna die.
because Qatar.
Yalla.
But yeah, I think that would just be a lot of sports. I think that would actually be kind of interesting. Anyone who works in sports media, they would be having a field day or field year, I guess.
Oh yeah, it would be
or
really
having
great
a
year for
headache
media.
by trying to plan all the marketing,
Yeah.
trying to plan all
Yeah.
the events, trying to make sure everybody stays composed.
Oh,
and
planning,
of course, the
planning
media
on who's
release-
going where.
Oh, yeah,
it,
by,
it-
like-
it get really hectic.
by like December of 2022, everyone's burnt out.
Yeah, it's just like 2022 comes out, it just comes around, and everyone's like, "Hey, guess what? We're all taking the next year off.
Yeah, no sports
No
for
sports.
the whole
Have
year.
fun. Have fun." Yep.
Remember
No,
2020? Yeah, we're just doing that again.
We're doing that again. No bubble, none of that. We're just not playing. So what did the media guys have to talk about?
The Adam
I don't
Silver just hair starting to fall out when you hear where it's not playing.
What hair? He's already bald.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oops.
What do you
He's
think,
gonna
Yusuf?
grow.
You think it should still be running?
Personally, no. The way, from what I've been hearing, because I still have some friends that live in Japan, and from everything I've heard from them, depending on like which part of Japan you go, there's a lot of, I wouldn't really say outrage, but there's a lot of concern from a lot of the locals about running the Olympics, because even though they're going to be like in a bubble, so to speak, like they have like the Olympic Village set up for all of them in however way possible that COVID restrictions apply. I still think that even though you have all that, you're gonna have some issues probably, because you've got way too many athletes that are going to be there. You've got potentially, as you said, guys that might not be vaccinated, and if they aren't, that's a huge concern. I think. Well, I don't even know if they would be allowed to compete.
I think they would.
Probably. I guess.
Yeah, because it's not out to every country. Like some countries.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Really.
You have, there's also other concerns about like athletes not wanting to go because of health concerns and whatnot, and the possibility of getting sick, because Japan is still in a bit of a sticky situation. You've got, I really don't think it should be running, but I'm not the IOC. And also the other thing too is when you talk about return on investment, Japan has spent like a lot of money to get ready for this. How do they make their money back? Why don't you the IOC pay for that? Like, how does that work?
How do they make their money back?
Yeah.
Well, the idea is that you host the Olympics so
Right.
that you can get yourself on a world stage, like your not just your country, your region, and your city. So like those three types of government, depending on what country you're in. So like if Toronto were to have that, then it would be Toronto mixed with the Ontario government and then Canadian
with the
government.
Right.
The idea is to bring investments to the city to show how world class of a city it is, and also tourism. Like when Sydney was hosting, or when Beijing was hosting, the idea was to like bring everyone out, especially like for China. It was like they went all out to say like, hey, look how advanced of a country we are. Now you guys come and make your investments, come visit us, do tourism here. That's like the idea, is to make back that money in like sort of that way, not necessarily just through ticket sales and stuff. The most amount of money that the IOC would make would be through broadcast sales, and also sponsorships and stuff like that. But the city and the country itself, the host city, the host country, the host region, they mostly are doing that for the purpose of being seen, kind of like a marketing effort, like, soft diplomacy, as they call it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Just basically kind of part of what the Olympics are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. So more like just like long-term investment, like thinking essentially, like future investments, getting that out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
kind of the idea.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like that is important. It's just the the way everything is right now is like it's still a little iffy. Even you look at we're like just looking at recent sporting events like the Euro Cup just passed, right? England, it's not coming home. I'm not sorry, you deserve that. But Wembley had like what 55,000 people in attendance, and the UK is not in hot shape right now when it comes to COVID.
I mean, and they already have like, just comparatively, they do have a fair amount of people who are vaccinated.
Yeah, that is true.
But yeah, this is like a totally different thing. This is like one game per day, I guess, maybe, right?
Yeah, one event or something. I don't even know how the scheduling is working, just because like it's so weird with the pandemic happening. It's like with other sports, yeah, it's fine. You get like 1-2 games a day, but it's like all spaced out. But there's multiple events that would be happening per day, and now it's probably like 2 a day or something.
I think the feel of the Olympics is going to change drastically, just because I guess everybody's used to kind of like that summer, looking forward to it, 2 weeks of just nonstop action, and now we got to look at it to points of, is this even safe type of thing.
Because oftentimes you would have like reporters, boots on the ground, spinning their stories and stuff like that. But now, would they even be allowed on in a certain area? Or maybe they would have to, alter that, in terms of reporting.
Yeah.
So
and then like interviews and all that too. Just
So
it's. Sorry, Anton.
No, that brings me to like the next part, which is like, do the Olympics matter anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a stab at that one. I think it does matter, like you said, soft diplomacy, but even bigger than that, this is a chance for athletes that have unique skill sets, not part of the big four, not part of the international scene, but international sports in general, for them to showcase and to prove themselves for that, that endorsement deal, that big interview signing, that big, sport ambassador look. And a lot of these guys are young. A lot of these guys are between the ages of 19 to 24, hyper athletes, as what I like to look at them, because the window is so small for them to, achieve, what Usain Bolt and Michael Phelps has done. And you don't get too many opportunities because it's so competitive. I mean, just looking at track in itself, to be part of, the relays and the 100 meters, you have to be the best of your class on top of the world class. Like, it's bigger than just being the fastest in your college. We're talking about being the fastest in the country, and then being at least top 10, top 12 in the world for you to get that shot at representing your nation effectively. So, to me, I think the Olympics do matter, because without it, a lot of these jobs are lost. A lot of these moments are lost. And also a lot of bringing the world together is also lost. You got to think this is also a multicultural event too. This is a chance for people to experience other things, to learn which countries they like and don't like, to really learn about racism and empowerment and discrimination. All those type of things come into play with these events, because we have a lot of racist supporting nations that technically, it's just a really big diaspora. And like, I just think it matters. I think it still matters. COVID makes it difficult to care about the same way. And I know I speak for a lot of people. I say, you kind of look at the Olympics now as, oh, it's just another thing to watch on TV, instead of, hey, I'm gonna get home from work, or maybe I might take an hour off work and watch this one event. And you saw that with the Euros this year.
Right.
Very, very much so. I think I was going to bring up the Euro, so I'm glad you brought that up. But it's whenever these like massive things happen, like these massive international tournaments, sporting events, what have you, right? Normally when the Olympics roll around, there's something that's always going to be of interest for people to watch based on culturalism, based on like their own homeland, whatever, right? Um, like the Americans, I'm not really going to use it as an example because when the Olympics roll around, they're focused on the men's basketball team. But for other nations that are competing, they're focused on these athletes, regardless of how like old they might be. Some of them are very young, going to go represent their country, and they're proud of watching these individuals represent their country in what is almost like a no man's land of athletics because these aren't put on this massive corporate broadcasting syndicate like everything else
Like
is.
stage, you mean?
Yeah, it's
They're
not
not
it's
on this
not
big
brought on
stage.
it's not as massive. Well, that's the thing, right? Is the Olympics by itself should be like it is that massive stage, but it's only once every 4 years. It's not like every year. It's not the fucking like it's not like the craziness like the Super Bowl or anything. So when you have these individuals that are going for like for track, shot put, pole vault, all these sports that you don't get to see on a big stage. These individuals from all these other countries get to be proud of those people that are representing their country. With COVID, it's just become, and I'm starting to look at this, is just like right now, it's just another event that is on TV. For me, though, the way I'm starting to see it as well is, yeah, you want to be like, you want to be proud of the individuals that are going out there to go represent your country in whatever sport they might be competing in. But you also have to think of like just the safety thing. Like these people are willing to risk their lives going out to compete in the Olympics while we're still in this situation. So, yeah, it's one of those things where, in a way, it does matter just for the sake of not even bragging rights, just pride, just country pride. Like I know people talk about with football, like the World Cup or the Euro Cup. They talk about how like, oh yeah, they're gonna be like they go nuts for their countries. Football America, they do the same thing, right? Yeah, because it's an international platform that you only get once every 2 years, every 4 years, and it's the one time where you can really be proud of what your country has been accomplishing as far as athletics go because they're not part of this massive stage like baseball and football and basketball are. I don't know why I said baseball because baseball's still baseball, but so do they matter? In a way, yes and no. Partly, I think they do, based on what I said. The other thing too is just, I guess that's the fun of competition, bragging rights. I'm not going to use the. I'm going to use the Winter Olympics for this example, but and we know this, but the Winter Olympics in Canada is a very big deal because we're a cold fucking country most of the year, and most of these sports that happen, luge, togging, snowboarding, all that stuff, a lot of it happens out here. And as far as competition goes, ice hockey. The one thing that everyone pays attention to during the Winter Olympics in this country is, for the majority at least, as far as I know, is ice hockey. Will the Canadian men's national team do it again? Probably. But we're there for bragging rights. We watch it. We watch the competition. We enjoy the competition. We are coming together, being proud of what our country has produced as far as these like superstar hockey players. And it's the same way that everyone else will look at it for their own countries. Like, what has our country produced as far as like this runner or swimming or whatever it might be? You know, so yeah, I guess they do kind of matter in the sense of just like societal pride, if that makes any sense. I don't know, Anton.
Yeah, I guess it's a very cheering for your country team or athlete representative is a very safe way of showing pride without having it seem to veer into nationalism. Um, Cheering for your country to win at pole vaulting seems more benign than nationalism on a grander, more uh, uh, you know more intense scale. Um, so I do see that sport can play that role, and Olympic sport can definitely play that role as well. But I guess one thing I'm sort of thinking of is like, is it worth it for these cities? Because progressively, it's just the return on investment for a lot of these host cities. It's not very. It's not that worth it anymore. It's just progressively more debt. causes cities to be in debt because of the amount of infrastructure that they have to build for that. They have to build the Olympic Village just to host the athletes.
I know some countries will build an entirely new stadium.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could look at the Brazil situation when they host the Rio.
Oh yeah,
Brazil
Brazil was
situation.
just,
and the
was
Olympics in
intense.
2012.
Beijing,
and
didn't they
so-
tear down the bird's nest?
I think so.
I
don't
think
remember.
they tore it down now. Yeah.
I agree
don't
with you
remember.
though. It's not very you know, it's not a very good idea to do this, especially right now with the way that the whole world wants to just be free of this virus, and the way that things are going with how easily transmissible it is. It's just like we should take a step back, but money is becoming more powerful than I think we realize, because countries now are foregoing all of these measures and all of these, risks just to recoup investment. And that's nuts when you think about it. That's just crazy.
Well, another thing is like, oftentimes they'll have to like displace entire communities, especially if they're in these countries with a lot of very low income populations.
Yeah.
In with the Rio Olympics, they just like from the airport to the village in the Olympic areas, they just put like fences, like really high wall fences, so you don't see the favelas or the slum areas.
Yeah.
And then they open it up to where it's like the quote unquote nicer areas, and they just like displaced whole communities. And I think in Italy there's one old building that just sort of ended up being kind of derelict, and a bunch of squatters ended up there or something like that. Became kind of dangerous place. Some countries are able to make use of it, like I think Sydney, they turned their Olympic Village area into like an entire neighborhood and community, with like shops and stuff like that, and full on condo buildings and stuff.
Okay, that's good.
But you have to think about like also the
Sochi.
geopolitics of it. Like the next Winter Olympics, it's going to be in China, right?
No, it's in isn't it in Tokyo?
No, pretty sure
that's
it's in
definitely
China.
not. No,
it's not in Tokyo.
No.
The
Winter Olympics.
Okay, it's in Beijing. It's in Beijing. Okay.
Yeah,
It is in Beijing.
Because
okay.
I remember them talking about it, but
yeah.
The geopolitics is gonna be heavy because again,
Yeah,
there's a huge fight between, where we're going as a hegemon, whether it be literally China is not a hegemon, or the United States, and then on top of that, just this is where ground zero apparently it started. Do you really want to get into all that?
Well, yeah, you think about like, because there are calls for countries by the citizens to boycott the Winter Olympics of the ones in China because of the human rights accusations and allegations and stuff like that going on in the Western area of the allegations of the work camps of targeting specifically the Uyghur Muslim minority ethnic population there, and also just crackdowns on journalistic freedom, and they're thinking about like what are we saying if we're sending our athletes to this place that's supposed to be allowing the host city to be on the world stage as soft power, as we talked about. What
is
are
that
we
Hong
saying
Kong situation with the passport
Hong Kong
going
as well?
on?
Like what are we saying about, what are we saying about that? Like the previous Winter Olympics, when it was in South Korea, like there was talks about like possible reunification, and they like had the single women's Korean hockey team, which was a thing. I mean, obviously Canada, United States, Sweden, Russia, we all crushed it, but like it's just how hockey is. But like inevitably, like politics will end up into this situation, and you just got to think like, is there a better way to go about this, apart from like this, host cities could we just choose like specific cities that we have, that we rotate in between, every 3 times for, Summer Olympics on each continent or something like that. Like one in the Americas, one in Europe,
Somewhere
one
in
in
Asia,
Asia,
somewhere in
somewhere
Europe,
in Africa.
Australia.
Yeah, one place in like
and part of
Sydney, and then we
Australia,
just rotate between the
just
three,
rotate. Yeah.
and then do the same thing for Winter Olympics. So like I don't know, like Calgary, what's a
Salt Lake City, Vancouver. Those are like the 2 from the Americas I can think of.
yeah. Well, you just also want to think about like
I'm not against what you guys are saying. It's just
how
it's
intense is the geopolitics of that? Like having one in China is just about as intense as having one in the United States as well, for some countries.
Yeah, that is true.
I'm not against what you guys are saying. It's just that this is for a lot of countries, the smaller ones. This is a chance for them to actually increase their revenue, increase their tourism, and bring those extra dollars.
They might not always like it's. I don't know what the smallest country
that hosted.
Well,
we can look at FIFA, and Qatar is set to host the next FIFA World Cup, and they're super in need of it.
Well, I mean, they also are super rich per capita.
They are rich per capita, and they're about to blow all their money on it and then go bankrupt like Dubai is about to. So,
well, that's why I want to look at Brazil. Like Brazil, again, that's a country that like they made the money to do it, but at the same time, it really left them in a dire spot. When you look at community basis, it's mix and mingle. But I think you would rather be beneficial to let the world bid on it, to let the world, have a chance instead of just like 3-city system. Even though it probably make logistics a hell of a lot.
Yeah, it definitely would. And also, like,
I don't know.
Every year there are fewer and fewer countries that want to bid on these things because they're the people, the cities that bid on them, their citizens are like, hey, stop! It's going to cost a lot of money of our taxpayer money, and you're gonna there's going to be a whole bunch of construction in the area that we don't necessarily want, and you might like displace the entire communities.
Yeah.
It's like if you do this, is it no longer a world event, right? I mean, part of it being a world event is the fact that you get to visit these other countries and have these particular.
Yeah,
I know it's part of the world event is that like all the nations compete. That's the biggest aspect of it.
Yeah. It's just all these smaller countries get that global platform. They get that global stage. That isn't just soccer. Because as far as international stage goes, soccer is as big as it gets. Mm-hmm. But what about swimmers? What about divers? What about pole vaulters? They get that platform. They get that, it's not as long. Obviously, they're only competing for a week or something like that. Like it's not many days out of the whole duration of the Olympics. But they're getting that platform. What the hell was that? There were birds just flew into my window. They're just, they get that platform, and it's like, yeah, it'll cost like a host city a lot of money, but then you get all this coming in. You get for the city, especially for like if it's a smaller country that's hosting it. But it's a time for sorry about that, but it's a time where people from other countries that are coming in to compete, and they're going to that city, they're getting a different idea. They're getting a view of like this area that they might not have ever known about. So it kind of works out, kind of doesn't, I guess.
But like it does often, like for these smaller countries, if it's a huge risk and it's a huge cost, and you have to think about like this cost benefit analysis. Like, is the benefit, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Like is it worth building, like spending so much money building this infrastructure, especially if your country is already in debt, or your citizens are already upset. There's because maybe that's what
happened with Brazil, didn't it? When they did the World Cup, weren't they like in debt or bankrupt? Not bankrupt, they were in debt, I think.
No, they weren't bankrupt, but like they had to take on debt.
Yeah.
I think.
Something like that.
Yeah. Either way, it costs a lot of money. Like billions of dollars.
And then you're just it's temporary infrastructure or anything. Not that you're going to be tearing it down immediately after it's done, but you use it for that purpose, and then
Yeah, I think one FIFA stadium was used like for like 12 games.
Yeah, I know because I know in Beijing is it in Beijing the Bird's Nest, that stadium, is that in Beijing? I can't remember.
Yeah,
That's in Beijing, right? Yeah. So I remember even like long after those Olympics were done, the last time I had heard it was being used was for of all things, the League of Legends World Championships in 2018. That was the last thing I heard about them using it for. Was a massive worldwide esports event, and then I believe they tore it down, or they're tearing it down now.
Well, I know that for their aquatic center, they turned it into like a community recreational aquatic center for a little bit. I don't know how long they kept it, but when I visited in like 2011, 2012, it was still there.
Kind of why I admire Toronto. They did that Pan Am Games back in 2015, and those centers are still up today.
Is it owned by
I think
I don't know who it's owned by, but
I know that
UTSC uses it. Do they
owns one of them?
UTSC uses it. It's amazing. I've been there, played on it, played a lot of games
really
on
nice,
it.
yeah.
I played actually at the downtown one near St. George campus as well. Another great facility for indoor soccer, but football for you guys listening in the UK and elsewhere. So I mean, that's where I admire Canada most. They take these facilities, they build them, but they also use them for the people, because primarily everything we do is for the people. This show is for the people, and that's really what it has to come down to. It should be about making people enriching the country's lives.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Montreal was like, it took a while for them to make back that money for their Olympics.
Yeah.
So is it worth it? I don't know.
It's hard to say, because you look at like the issue I think we're starting to get towards now, or as we're starting to like wind down with this episode, is like the amount of infrastructure you're spending your billions of dollars on, like taxpayer dollars to build. What the hell are you using it for after the fact, right? Like, yeah, when we did the Pan Am Games here, yeah, it was great. We're still using it for like recreational stuff for the communities. North America is going to be hosting the World Cup in like 2026, I think it is.
Oh yeah, it's like
it's split between
Canada, US, and
Mexico.
Yeah, it's just split between two countries.
So depending on where in Canada we're going to be, hosting games, right? Like we've already, as far as I know, we've already got the infrastructure to host like a few games here and there. Nothing we'd have to build, nothing we'd have to tear down. Like we already got BMO, so there's that, right? It's like it would just become a hassle for, say, if Toronto was to ever like Toronto and a couple other cities probably like say we were ever to host the Olympics one day, right? The amount of stuff we'd probably have to set up would, as if Toronto construction's already not bad enough, be a million times worse. Not to mention like
for the Olympics, you mean?
Yeah. The amount of stuff they would have to spend, number one, the money on and the time on to build everything would just be a hassle to the city of Toronto. Number two is, I know they always look around at cities that have very good public transportation systems.
Yeah, I was about to mention that.
That's very important. And so, you look at whenever the Southeast Asian Games happen, they're occasionally hosted in Singapore, which doesn't surprise me because easier to get everything there. They have everything built, and the Singapore transit system is perfect. You look at Toronto, and the TDC is still under progress.
Well, it's still the best transit system in North America.
Apparently.
Because all the other North American transit systems must suck.
Apparently. That's okay. It's not like it's been 6 years since they started the Eglinton project, and it's still going on to this day.
Yeah.
Not like that's happening. But, public transit is also another thing that, like, some countries will have to keep in mind, that they might have to, on top of the money you're spending to build the physical buildings, like the infrastructure for the athletes to compete in, now you have to consider, oh, shit, what are we going to do about, like,
the
transit,
tourists
that are coming in? Because, obviously not this year because COVID, but by the next Olympics in 4 years, well, 3 years, I guess. Yeah. Stupid timing. They're probably gonna have people that are gonna want to go and see the Olympics again. That are gonna fly out there, right? They gotta stay somewhere. You have your hotels, that's fine. But to get back and forth to stadiums to go see certain events, either a shuttle system or you have like a good bus system or a train system of some kind to get you back and forth. If you don't, well, now you got to think about that. You got to spend more money figuring all that out. You build a new stadium. You're like, great, now we got to build a station, and we already have an existing railway, like a rail line. We got to extend that to the stadium now. There's a lot of logistics that really have to go into planning out the Olympics, and now I'm really starting to go on the fence of like, man, this is so much money spent for something that just exists. Like it's kind of just baffling now that I think about it. As we've carried on with this conversation, it really is just baffling to me. So
That's
yeah,
cost a lot of money.
that's just a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and it takes a while for countries to recoup that. It's a very, very long time. It's a long, long time to recoup something like that. Any of those events, the Olympics, the World Cup, whenever countries host like a World Expo, which now granted Dubai was supposed to host that in last year in 2020 and COVID, so they never did. But they spent all the money advertising for it. Qatar's got the World Cup into next year, and they're going to be spending. They have spent a lot of money and lives on it. They're going to be in debt for a while. Yeah, man. I don't know. The Olympics. When you just think about the Olympics on a small scale, like you just think about like the sporting event itself of the Olympics. It's just one conversation that you can just look at. As we said, the topic of this episode. Do they really matter? You have to think about it like that. When you look at it from an economic standpoint, then it just is like, is it really worth hosting this thing? Like, is it worth the potential of going in debt to pay for all of what we have to build for this 3-4 week long event? What is like a month? No, month and a bit, something like that. And then
it's like 3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks. And then go into debt for a while and spend 10 years, 15 years maybe trying to recoup all that money and get it back and help out the country's economy again. I don't know. Yeah. Final thoughts, guys. I think those were mine. So
Yeah, my final thoughts is that they do matter. They're essential to our lives. It's just that right now, present day, the situation, it's tough to see that that money and recouping investment is like more of a priority than protecting human lives and doing our part to end this pandemic. So it's surprising. However, when you do look at it, the Olympics is still something we have to look at. The athletes, of course, these guys are 19, 24, 26, 28, some of these guys, this is the way that they make their money. This is what they practice for the last 3 years for, build
spend their
themselves
entire
up
lives
for
on.
this.
Oh.
For a lot of them, this is like their only chance of professional sports. For a lot of them, this is the only thing, that they breathe and love to do. For a lot of them, this trumps working in an office. And I feel like we should just give them their due.
For some of these,
I just express caution.
I mean, some of these athletes, it's like that's the thing until they reach their their late 20s, and that's their whole athletic career.
Yeah.
So I get that you kind of want to you want to have that fun in your life before you're gonna have to not be physically able to do that
anymore. Yeah. And a lot of these guys that do well in their younger years in the Olympics, like it's they rake up the endorsements that they get while they're there, and it's what they get in the long term is endorsement money. It's what keeps them going.
I mean, so like in terms of cost, so I'm looking at the Rio Olympics. They said the estimated cost was 4.6 billion US dollars, like 2015 inflation adjusted dollars. That compares to the average since 1960 of about 5.2 billion US dollars. The most expensive ones were Beijing in 2008, which was like 40 something billion, and Sochi, which was like 50 billion, because it took place in like the southern part of Russia,
the southern part in this tiny little part of Russia.
Like, why wouldn't you bring it to the more northern parts where there's snow?
Moscow, St. Petersburg.
Putin spared no expense.
Yeah, clearly.
None at all. Yeah, it was a lot of money. But yeah, just thinking about
man.
Yeah,
That's
so maybe
nuts.
it is still maybe it does still matter, but there are like aspects of it you have to rethink, like how like how might the games change, you know, like
Yeah.
thinking about back in was it 2014 Sochi Olympic Games when a lot of athletes and people were upset about uh, laws discriminating against homosexual and
Athletes,
their laws on sexuality,
Yeah.
and also now like after the North American and also I guess arguably world reckoning on like since the surge of support or the surge of attention behind the Black Lives Matter movement back in like June 2020, and how now leagues are allowing people to either like take a knee or whatever have you to show a sign of support for a certain behind a certain cause. And like if you remember who was it? Was it Jesse Owens or who raised their fist in I think in the 60s Olympics.
Maybe.
And they were like, yeah, you can't do that. And they still have that rule, like, hey, don't you can't. This is not the place to be political, quote unquote. And so you got to think like, well, is that something that they want to change in order to keep up with the times?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's all I want to say specifically about that. And also just think about whether or not it's worth it if you're a host city. That's all.
Yeah. It's really something that when countries bid on it, like I assume they're like looking at like the long term.
They have to, otherwise.
Yeah, they have to. Otherwise, why the hell would you bid? Like, if you're bidding on it, you're not thinking like, okay, how's my country going to look in 5 years? Like, well, maybe in 5 or like 2 years. Also, I just got me to thinking like, had the Olympics happened last year, like I would wonder what would have happened during like the time of the Black Lives Matter movement when it like really burst out. Had the Olympics been running around that time, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. That's way too big a hypothetical for me.
Exactly.
Like, question for our next episode.
Tune in next time on Sport. That might actually
sure
just be
the next
episode.
That is exactly why you should subscribe, everyone.
That is why you should subscribe. You should.
Because we come up with the episodes right here.
We do. We really do. You got to tune in every week to find out. That's why you got to check us out on Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere else you can find your podcasts. We are also on YouTube, youtube.com/sportculation. Be sure to check out the YouTube channel because that's where you'll see our beautiful faces. And you'll see our other offshoot content up the boards where Tyler, I, and occasionally Parse will be talking about hockey stuff. By the way, football season's coming up. So, Parse, I hope you're ready.
Let's just put me on all the boards so we can talk about football. Because you know how I feel
exactly.
about football.
We're gonna be ready for football season.
Excited,
so, yeah, be sure to check us out there. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify. Do that. Leave a comment. Leave a like. Do whatever you need to. Be sure to check us out. Tell your friends. This has been the Sportculation Podcast. I'm Yusuf.
I'm Parse.
And I'm Anton.
And we'll see you soon. Goodbye.